If you've ever felt trapped in a negotiation, like you're constantly battling for every inch, or perhaps you've walked away wondering if you left something crucial on the table, then this video is for you. We're often taught that life's a zero-sum game, a constant struggle where one person's gain means another's loss. But what if the greatest lessons in influence, those timeless principles Dale Carnegie championed for winning friends and impacting people, apply just as powerfully to getting what you want in every interaction? This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding human nature so deeply that you can transform conflict into cooperation, turning adversaries into allies, and unlocking solutions you never knew existed. We'll show you how to navigate any discussion, from the boardroom to your living room, with a newfound sense of control and collaboration. Stick with us until the very end, because the insights we're about to share will fundamentally shift how you approach disagreements and achieve your goals, ensuring you never miss another opportunity for a win-win outcome. You won't want to miss a single piece of advice. And if you find these strategies as transformative as we do, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more wisdom on mastering the art of influence and effective communication. Focus on interests, not positions. The first and arguably most foundational principle of effective negotiation is to focus on interests, not positions. Let's revisit the seemingly simple dispute between the two men in the library over the open or closed window. On the surface, their positions were clear. One wanted the window open, the other wanted it closed. This is a common trap in negotiations. People become so entrenched in their stated positions, the specific demands, offers, or stances they declare, that they fail to look deeper. Arguing from positions inevitably leads to a standoff. If one person insists on open and the other on closed, the only apparent solutions are compromise, half open, which satisfies neither fully, or one party capitulating, leaving them resentful. This win-lose dynamic harms relationships and often results in suboptimal agreements. The brilliance of the librarian's intervention lay in her ability to look past their rigid positions and inquire about their underlying interests. An interest is the why behind a position. It's the fundamental need, desire, concern, or fear that motivates a person to take a particular stance. The man wanting the window open wasn't just fixated on the window itself. His interest was fresh air. The man wanting it closed wasn't just against an open window. His interest was to avoid drafts that would disorganize his papers. Once these deeper interests were understood, a more creative solution became possible: opening a window in another room, providing fresh air without creating a draft. This demonstrates that while positions are concrete and often antagonistic, interests are frequently complementary or can be satisfied in multiple ways, opening pathways to mutual gain. The benefits of focusing on interests are obvious. It encourages creativity, fosters collaboration, and leads to more robust, satisfying agreements. However, implementing this can be remarkably challenging. Positions are tangible, often loudly declared. Interests, on the other hand, can be hidden, vague, or even unconsciously held. They might be disguised by strong emotions or buried under layers of demands. So how do you unearth these crucial interests? The simplest and most powerful tool is often overlooked. Simply ask why. This isn't a confrontational, "Why are you being so difficult?" but a genuine, empathetic inquiry. Why is that important to you? What problem are you trying to solve? What concerns do you have? To truly grasp the other side's interests, you must cultivate the ability to see things from their point of view. This requires putting yourself in their shoes, understanding their motivations, their pressures, their constraints, and their aspirations. It's not about agreeing with them, but about empathizing with their perspective. Active listening, asking open-ended questions, and paraphrasing what you hear can help clarify their interests. For instance, if a potential buyer states, "I won't pay more than $100,000 for that car," instead of simply saying, "My price is $120,000, you might ask, "I understand you have a budget. Could you share what factors led you to that price point, or what you're looking for in terms of value from a vehicle?" This shifts the conversation from a battle of numbers to an exploration of underlying concerns like affordability, perceived value, or even a tight deadline. Once you uncover these underlying interests, the next crucial step is to talk about them openly. People listen better when they feel understood and acknowledged. When you demonstrate that you've heard and comprehended their concerns, they are more likely to perceive you as intelligent, reasonable, and trustworthy. This creates a psychological opening. If you want them to genuinely listen to your interests, start by showing you care about and understand theirs. You might say, "I hear that your primary concern is securing a fast delivery to meet your production schedule, and you're worried about potential delays impacting your bottom line. Is that right?" This validation lowers their defenses and makes them more receptive. Of course, you also need to communicate your own interests clearly and compellingly. The other side cannot address your needs if they don't know what they are. Don't assume they can read your mind or infer your motivations from your positions. State your interests explicitly and explain why they are important to you. For example, instead of just saying, "I need a higher salary," you might express, "My interest in a higher salary is driven by my goal to invest in further professional development, which I believe will ultimately benefit the company through enhanced skills." To translate your interests into tangible options, ask yourself a crucial question. If they agree with me tomorrow, what exactly do I want them to do? This helps you move from abstract desires to concrete, actionable requests. By shifting the focus from rigid positions to the fluid realm of underlying interests, you transform negotiation from a confrontational battle over fixed outcomes into a collaborative problem-solving process where mutually beneficial solutions can genuinely emerge. Use fair standards. No matter how adept you become at understanding the other side's interests, conflicts will invariably arise. You might want a lower rent while your landlord desires a higher one. A customer seeks a discount while a supplier aims for a higher profit margin. In these situations, where interests appear to be directly opposing, the common pitfall is to engage in a back-and-forth haggling based purely on willpower and stubbornness. This haggling over positions often leads to inefficient agreements, damaged relationships, or stalemates. The solution lies in the second powerful principle. Use objective criteria or fair standards. Recall the illustrative cake example. When two individuals were unable to agree on a fair division, the elegant solution of having one person cut and the other choose first was based on a fair standard. This rule isn't arbitrary. It's an objective principle that removes bias and incentivizes fairness. Objective criteria are unbiased rules, precedents, market values, or established norms that are independent of the personal opinions or desires of either negotiator. They provide a legitimate external benchmark against which proposed solutions can be measured, thereby depersonalizing the conflict and shifting the discussion from a clash of wills to a search for a fair outcome. Examples of objective criteria are abundant and diverse. They can include market prices, what similar goods or services sell for, legal requirements, laws, regulations, ordinances, expert opinions, assessments by independent professionals, precedent, what was agreed upon in similar past situations, industry standards, accepted best practices in a field, scientific judgment, factual data, engineering specifications, efficiency, what produces the best outcome with the least effort, or depreciated cost for valuing used items. The key is that these criteria are not invented on the spot by either party to serve their own interests. They exist independently and are generally accepted as legitimate. Often people resist agreeing during a negotiation because they feel as if you are demanding something from them. They might perceive your offer as an arbitrary demand, a personal preference, or a tactic to gain an advantage. However, if you frame your proposals by saying, "Let's check the rules," or "What do industry standards suggest?" or "What would an independent appraiser say?" it fundamentally shifts the focus from what you want to what the rules or facts say. Suddenly, it's not you demanding a specific outcome. It's the objective criteria guiding the solution. This subtle but profound reframe can dramatically reduce defensiveness and open the door to agreement. Let's consider a more complex scenario. Imagine you've hired a contractor to build an extension on your house, but the construction contract doesn't explicitly specify the required depth for the foundations. The contractor suggests a depth of 2 feet, which seems insufficient to you, while you believe 5 feet is the standard for your type of soil and local conditions. A common, ineffective response would be to simply compromise at 3.5 feet, or to engage in a heated argument about who is right. Neither approach guarantees safety or fairness. Instead, applying the principle of fair standards, you might engage the contractor in a dialogue like this. Look, perhaps I'm wrong. Maybe 2 feet is indeed enough for this type of foundation, but I have some concerns about the long-term stability, given the soil composition here. Does the government have standard specifications for foundation depths under these particular soil conditions? What are the earthquake risks in this area, and how do those regulations factor in? Where do you suggest we look for an agreed-upon standard to resolve this question, ensuring we build a safe and compliant structure? Notice the power in this approach. You're not accusing the contractor, you're inviting them to a shared problem-solving endeavor. You're appealing to a higher authority, objective rules, safety, and accepted standards, rather than merely asserting your personal preference. By asking, "Where do we look for a standard?" you are subtly inviting them to collaborate in finding the objective criterion, making them a partner in the solution rather than an adversary in the dispute. Here's how you can apply this principle effectively in almost any negotiation. Before you even begin the detailed discussion, proactively seek to identify and agree upon some fair standards together with the other side. For instance, if you're negotiating the sale of an asset, instead of immediately stating your high price and letting them state their low price, you might propose, "Okay, I'm looking for a solid return on this asset, and I'm sure you're looking for good value." Before we delve into specific numbers, let's discuss what a truly fair price would be for an asset like this in the current market. What standards should we use to determine that? Should we look at recent comparable sales? Get an independent appraisal? Consider the replacement cost. By focusing on establishing these fair standards up front, you transform what could have been a contentious clash of arbitrary interests into a shared, rational pursuit of a justifiable outcome. You're not trying to convince them of your price. You're inviting them to agree on the method by which a fair price will be determined. This dramatically shifts the dynamic, turning a potential confrontation over opposing desires into a collaborative exploration of objective reality, making it far more likely that a wise, durable, and fair agreement will be reached, satisfactory to both parties. Invent options for mutual gain. Let's return to the poignant example of the 2 children fighting over an orange. The parents' immediate, seemingly equitable solution was to cut it 50-50. Yet as we discovered, this fair division resulted in only 50% satisfaction for each child, because their underlying interests were completely different. One desired the fruit, the other the peel. This highlights a crucial, often overlooked aspect of effective negotiation, the power of inventing options for mutual gain. Most negotiations begin with the assumption of a fixed pie, a limited resource that must be divided, meaning one party's gain is necessarily the other's loss. This zero-sum thinking stifles creativity and limits outcomes. The Harvard approach challenges us to expand the pie by generating a wide range of creative solutions that can satisfy more, if not all, of each party's interests. So, how do you cultivate an environment where truly creative solutions can emerge? The key is to separate the act of inventing options from the act of judging or selecting them. This is perhaps one of the most powerful distinctions in the entire negotiation framework. Human nature tends to evaluate ideas immediately. As soon as a suggestion is voiced, our critical faculties jump in. That won't work. That's too expensive. They'll never agree to that. This premature criticism stifles the flow of ideas and shuts down potentially innovative pathways. The solution is a structured brainstorming session. This can be done either with your own side or, even more powerfully, collaboratively with the other side. The goal in the first stage is to generate as many ideas as possible, no matter how wild or seemingly impractical they might seem. Encourage a free flow of thought, where quantity trumps quality initially. The rule is simple: no judgment, no criticism, no selection. All ideas, even the outlandish ones, are welcomed and recorded. This phase is about exploring the full landscape of possibilities, pushing the boundaries of conventional thinking. To facilitate an effective brainstorming session, consider these practical steps. Choose a few participants. Keep the group small, enough to be manageable, but large enough to foster diverse perspectives. Change the environment. Get out of the formal negotiation room. A different setting, a casual coffee shop, a walk in a park, or even a different meeting room, can help break traditional thinking patterns. Design an informal atmosphere. Encourage comfort and openness. Remove any pressure of hierarchy or expectation. The goal is a playful, exploratory mood. Define the purpose clearly. Remind everyone that the objective is to generate options, not to evaluate them. Reiterate the no judgment rule. Write down all ideas, perhaps on a whiteboard or flip chart, so everyone can see them and build upon them. Once the brainstorming phase is complete and you have a substantial list of potential solutions, then, and only then, does the evaluation begin. Start by identifying the most promising ideas, those that seem to offer the greatest potential for mutual gain. From there, discuss ways to improve them, refining them, combining them, and adapting them to better address the interests identified in the first principle. This two-step process, first invent, then decide, ensures that good ideas aren't prematurely dismissed and that all potential avenues are explored. A common misconception in negotiation is that differences between the parties create problems. In reality, these differences are often the very source of creative solutions and mutual gain. Think back to the orange example. The solution was possible precisely because each child wanted a different part of the orange. If both had wanted only the fruit or only the peel, a 50-50 split would have been the only outcome, and one child would have been left with something they didn't want. Their differing interests were complementary, not conflicting. Consider a T scenario where one party values time over money and the other values money over time. A common negotiation might involve haggling over the price. However, if you understand their different priorities, you might invent an option where one party pays a higher price but receives faster delivery, while the other accepts a slightly lower price for a slower, more convenient production schedule. Or one party might be willing to take on more risk in exchange for a higher potential reward, while the other prefers certainty and a guaranteed, albeit smaller, return. These are all differences that, when identified, can be leveraged to create value for both sides. It's truly absurd to think that your differences are the root cause of your problems in negotiation. On the contrary, it's often the differences that lead to creative solutions, because they allow for trade-offs and arrangements that satisfy distinct interests without requiring identical outcomes. By actively seeking out and embracing these differences, and by rigorously applying the principle of separating invention from judgment, you can transform a negotiation from a limited, zero-sum game into an expansive, value-creating endeavor where both parties can walk away with more than they initially thought possible. This requires a shift in mindset, from competition to collaboration, and a willingness to explore the full spectrum of possibilities before narrowing down to a final agreement. Separate the people from the problem. This principle is perhaps the most crucial for maintaining strong relationships, especially in ongoing or long-term negotiations. Before you even utter a word in a negotiation, visualize a simple yet powerful image, a vertical line splitting a person down the middle. On one side is the person with their emotions, ego, perceptions, and unique communication style. On the other side is the problem, the objective issues, the facts, the differing interests, and the potential solutions. Your fundamental goal in any negotiation is to be soft on the person, but hard on the problem. This means being empathetic, respectful, and understanding of the individual across the table, while simultaneously being firm, persistent, and objective when addressing the core issues at hand. The challenge is that all too often we blur these lines. We become soft on the person, and as a result we end up being soft on the problem as well, failing to secure our legitimate interests. Conversely, We might be incredibly tough on the problem, but in doing so, we also become tough on the person, damaging the relationship irrevocably. Neither extreme is conducive to successful, sustainable outcomes. Negotiations are fundamentally interactions between people first, and people are complex. They have varying viewpoints, often colored by their unique backgrounds, experiences, and cultural lenses. Their egos are easily threatened, making them defensive and less receptive to new ideas. They tend to see the world from their own subjective perspective, frequently confusing their perceptions with objective reality. They might misinterpret your words, assume malicious intent where none exists, or fail to communicate their true intentions clearly, leading to misunderstandings. Moreover, remember that you must deal not only with their problems, but also with your own. Your own anger, frustration, impatience, or even simple fatigue can cloud your judgment and block agreement. Your perceptions may also be one-sided. You might not be listening effectively, or you could be failing to communicate your own needs with sufficient clarity. All these human elements, both yours and theirs, contribute to the people problem that must be managed proactively and skillfully. So, how do you manage this delicate balance? Being soft on the person involves several key strategies. Acknowledge their emotions. Before diving into the issues, acknowledge their feelings. I understand this has been a frustrating situation for you. This doesn't mean you agree with their emotion or its cause, but simply that you recognize it. Practice active listening. Truly listen to understand, not just to respond. Use verbal and nonverbal cues to show you're engaged. Paraphrase their statements to confirm understanding. So if I'm hearing you correctly, your main concern is the tight deadline and the potential impact on your team. Express appreciation. Compliment them whenever genuinely possible. I appreciate your willingness to discuss this openly. Thank you for taking the time to explain your position so thoroughly. Even small gestures of appreciation can build goodwill, build rapport. Ask yourself at every stage of the negotiation, am I paying enough attention to the people problem? Are you making an effort to connect with them on a human level? This leads us to one of the most effective preventative measures for people problems, building a relationship with the other side before the negotiation even begins. Negotiating with someone you know, trust, and have a positive relationship with is immeasurably easier than negotiating with a complete stranger. When there's a foundation of mutual respect and understanding, miscommunications are less likely to escalate into conflict, and goodwill can bridge gaps in understanding. Therefore, make it a habit to arrive early to chat before formal meetings and stay a bit afterward for informal conversation. These seemingly small interactions, discussing shared interests, family, hobbies, or even the weather, can humanize the other party and build a crucial reservoir of goodwill. Get to know their likes, their dislikes, their professional background, and their aspirations. These informal interactions do not detract from the seriousness of the negotiation. Rather, they make future negotiations significantly smoother and more productive. Multiple studies consistently show that simply getting to know the other side, even briefly, increases the success rate of negotiations by 25 to 30%. This is because a positive relationship fosters trust, reduces defensiveness, and creates an environment where both parties are more willing to share information and explore creative solutions. By prioritizing the human element, being soft on the person while remaining hard on the problem, you not only increase your chances of reaching a beneficial agreement, but also ensure that the relationship, a valuable asset in itself, remains intact and perhaps even strengthened for future interactions. Handle dirty tactics, all right? By now you might be thinking, these 4 steps sound fair and ethical, almost too nice. But what if the other side isn't playing by these fair rules? What if they resort to manipulation, deception, or outright aggression? This is a crucial and valid concern. In the real world, negotiations are not always conducted with perfect integrity. People sometimes lie, distort facts, employ various pressure tactics, or even resort to personal attacks. The good news is that recognizing these common dirty tactics is often the first and most powerful step towards neutralizing them. You don't have to descend to their level. You can address these tactics without abandoning your principled approach. Let's start with deceptive tactics and psychological warfare. These can range from outright lies about facts to ambiguous authority, claiming to have limited power when they don't, to good cop, bad cop routines, to calculated delays, or even emotional outbursts designed to manipulate. The key to countering these is often to mention the tactic directly and impersonally. By bringing the hidden agenda into the open, you often disarm it. For example, if you suspect a good cop, bad cop routine is being played, you might say, "Joe, it seems like you and Ted are playing good cop and bad cop. If you need a break to get on the same page, just ask." This direct, calm acknowledgement of the tactic makes it less effective, as its power relies on being covert. It also subtly suggests that you're aware of their game, which may make the other side worry about losing credibility, or even losing you from the negotiation entirely. Merely raising a question about their approach can often be enough to make them abandon it. However, a crucial caveat: be extremely careful to avoid personal attacks. When calling out a tactic, focus on the behavior or the situation, not on the person's character or motives. Instead of saying, "You deliberately put me facing the sun to distract me, you're so manipulative," which is accusatory and escalatory, rephrase it impersonally. "The sun in my eyes is very distracting. I'm finding it hard to concentrate with this glare. Can we adjust the schedule and meet later, perhaps when the sun isn't directly in this window, or move to a different spot?" This states the problem objectively, attributes no malicious intent, and proposes a solution maintaining focus on the issue rather than turning it into a personal confrontation. Another common tactic is extreme demands or escalating commitments. They might open with an outrageous offer or slowly raise their demands as the negotiation progresses. Your response should be to stay anchored to your principles, refer back to objective criteria. "I understand your opening offer, but based on market comparables, that figure seems significantly out of alignment. Perhaps we should revisit what constitutes a fair market value for this property." Then there are pressure tactics, attempts to make you feel uncomfortable or rush you into a decision. This could involve creating a hostile environment, imposing artificial deadlines, take it or leave it, or making veiled threats. Your defense mechanism here is to recognize the pressure and resist the urge to react immediately. Don't be rushed. You can simply state, "I appreciate your urgency, but I need time to consider this properly," or "I understand the deadline, but rushing this decision is not in either of our best interests." If they threaten, acknowledge the threat, but immediately redirect to the problem. "I understand that if we don't reach an agreement by Friday, you'll have to consider other suppliers. My interest is in finding a mutually beneficial agreement. Let's focus on how we can bridge this gap before then." By naming the tactic and refusing to be manipulated, you retain control. Finally, some negotiators resort to personal attacks or insults to undermine your confidence or provoke an emotional reaction. This is where the principle of separate the people from the problem becomes paramount. When they attack you, resist the natural urge to defend yourself. Instead, use negotiation jujitsu, which we'll delve into in more detail in the next section. For now, remember to deflect their personal attacks and refocus on the underlying issues. I understand you might have concerns about my experience, but let's focus on the proposed solution and whether it meets the requirements we both established. The key is to remain calm, principled, and focused on finding a solution rather than allowing yourself to be dragged into a destructive power struggle or an emotional battle that benefits no one. By calmly and strategically calling out unfair tactics, you not only protect yourself, but also subtly encourage the other party to return to a more principled and productive way of negotiating. What if they are more powerful? BATNA. One of the most intimidating challenges in negotiation arises when the other side holds significantly more power. They might be a larger company, a dominant market player, or possess greater resources, influence, or alternatives than you do. When confronted with such a disparity, the natural inclination might be to either concede immediately out of fear, or to bravely yet foolishly turn the negotiation into a direct gunfight. A head-on confrontation, you are almost guaranteed to lose. Neither approach is effective. The best, indeed, the only truly empowering thing you can do when facing a more powerful opponent is to develop your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Your BATNA is your walkaway alternative. It's the course of action you will take if the current negotiation fails to produce a satisfactory agreement. It is your safety net, your plan B, your best option if you cannot reach a deal. Thinking about your BATNA profoundly shifts your mindset and critically your leverage. Consider a practical example. Imagine yourself walking into a job interview with no other offers on the table. How would you feel during the salary negotiation? Likely nervous, desperate, and weak. You'd probably accept almost any offer, knowing you have no other immediate prospects. Now contrast that feeling with walking into the same interview, but this time you have two other solid job offers from reputable companies. The difference in your demeanor, your confidence, and your ability to negotiate for a better salary is palpable. You know you can walk away if the offer isn't satisfactory. You have options. That difference is power. The more easily you can walk away from a negotiation, the greater your power. This is because your BATNA determines your reservation point, the lowest acceptable outcome you would agree to before deciding to pursue your alternative. If you have a strong BATNA, you can confidently say no to an unfavorable offer and pursue your alternative. If your BATNA is weak or non-existent, you're essentially negotiating blindly, tied to the table, and vulnerable to accepting almost any terms, no matter how poor. Developing your BATNA is not merely about identifying what a minimally acceptable agreement is. It will, more often than not, actually raise that minimum. The process of exploring and refining your alternatives often reveals better possibilities than you initially considered, strengthening your position and increasing your confidence. To develop a strong BATNA, you need to engage in a deliberate, three-step process. Brainstorm a wide range of possible alternatives if the current negotiation falls through. Don't limit yourself. What else could you do? Who else could you negotiate with? What resources do you have independently? Identify the most promising alternatives and take steps to improve them. Can you make your best alternative even better? If it's another job offer, can you get it in writing? If it's another supplier, can you get a concrete quote? Select your single best alternative. This is your BATNA. It's the yardstick against which any proposed agreement must be measured. If the negotiated agreement is not better than your BATNA, you should walk away. Crucially, you must always develop your BATNA before negotiating. Don't fall into the trap of thinking, let's negotiate first and see what happens. Without a clearly defined BATNA, you are truly negotiating blindly. You won't know if an offer is good or bad because you have no objective standard against which to compare it. A strong BATNA provides immense psychological leverage, even if the other party isn't explicitly aware of it. Your confidence will project, and your readiness to walk away if necessary will be subtly communicated, making the other side more likely to offer you a better deal. It shifts you from a position of desperation to one of thoughtful choice. Your BATNA serves as your ultimate protection in negotiation. It protects you from making a bad agreement, one you might regret later, simply because you feel pressured or have no other options. It also protects you from accepting an agreement that is worse than what you could achieve on your own. It is your source of power, even when facing a seemingly overwhelming opponent. By diligently preparing your BATNA, you transform yourself from a passive recipient of the other side's power into an active participant who has agency and control over your own destiny, capable of walking away from unsatisfactory deals and pursuing better paths. Say, what if they attack you personally? Negotiation Jiu-Jitsu. When a negotiation veers off course and the other party begins to attack you personally instead of addressing the problem at hand, things can become incredibly challenging. They might belittle your ideas, question your competence, dismiss your concerns, or even resort to outright insults. Your natural primal reaction is to defend yourself, to lash out, or to retreat. However, engaging in a tit-for-tat exchange or becoming defensive almost always leads nowhere productive. You push, they push back, and soon both parties are stuck in a destructive cycle of blame and accusation, far from any constructive solution. So what do you do when faced with such personal aggression? The Harvard framework suggests employing a powerful technique they call negotiation jujitsu. Jujitsu, a martial art, is about elegantly using an opponent's momentum and force against them rather than directly opposing it. In negotiation, this means sidestepping their attacks, deflecting their negative energy, and redirecting their focus back to the problem, rather than engaging in a personal battle. Instead of resisting their accusations head-on, you absorb them and then redirect their energy towards finding a solution. Here's how you can apply negotiation jujitsu. Look behind their position. When they resort to personal attacks or rigidly state what they want, don't just react with a yes or no or by defending yourself. Instead, try to understand the underlying reason for their attack or rigid stance. Ask why, or what is really important to you about that. If they say, your proposal is amateurish and shows a complete lack of understanding, instead of defending your proposal, you might ask, could you elaborate on what specific aspects you find amateurish? What are your concerns about it? And what problem are you trying to solve with a different approach? This subtly shifts the focus from your perceived inadequacy to their specific concerns, which are usually rooted in their interests. You're probing for the why behind their harsh judgment, which might reveal a legitimate, unaddressed interest. If they keep rejecting anything you say, then ask for their advice. This is a particularly effective tactic when the other party is being stubbornly negative, constantly shooting down every idea you propose. If you find yourself in a loop where every suggestion you make is met with criticism or dismissal, try a paradigm shift. Instead of continuing to propose solutions, ask for theirs. Frame it as seeking their expertise. We seem to be having trouble finding a common path. If you were in my shoes facing this specific challenge, what would you do? How would you approach solving this problem from your perspective? This remarkable question forces them to put themselves in your shoes, even if only momentarily. It subtly shifts the burden of problem solving onto them and encourages them to be constructive. When they offer advice, they become invested in that solution, often softening their stance and becoming more open to collaboration, as they've now contributed to the ideation process. Invite criticism of your ideas, not yourself. Instead of immediately defending your ideas when they are attacked or critiqued, actively invite criticism. Ask them, what's wrong with this idea, or what are the weaknesses you see in this proposal? This might seem counterintuitive, as our natural instinct is to protect our creations. However, by inviting criticism, you achieve several powerful outcomes. Firstly, it disarms them. It's hard to attack someone who is openly asking for feedback. Secondly, and more importantly, their criticisms often reveal their hidden interests, concerns, or unstated limitations. For example, if you propose a new project timeline and they immediately say, "That's completely unrealistic," instead of defending your timeline, you might ask, "What specific parts of the timeline seem unrealistic to you, and what are your concerns if we were to proceed with it?" Their answer might reveal a genuine concern about resource allocation, an upcoming holiday, or an unforeseen technical challenge, all of which are valuable insights that help you learn about their true interests and adjust your proposal to better meet shared needs. By employing negotiation jujitsu, you avoid direct confrontation and instead redirect their negative energy into constructive channels. You transform their attacks into opportunities for gaining valuable information about their interests and concerns, and you subtly encourage them to become partners in problem-solving rather than adversaries. This approach maintains your composure, protects the relationship, and keeps the negotiation focused on finding a wise and practical solution, even when the other side is trying to drag you into a personal battle. The importance of building relationships. While the principles of focusing on interests, using objective criteria, inventing options, and separating people from the problem are powerful on their own, their effectiveness is greatly amplified when underpinned by a strong, positive relationship with the other negotiating party. It might seem obvious, but it's often overlooked in the heat of a deal. At its core, negotiation is a human interaction. and human interactions are smoother, more productive, and more enjoyable when there's a foundation of trust, respect, and mutual understanding. Think about it. Negotiating with a complete stranger, someone you've just met, is inherently more challenging than negotiating with a colleague you've worked with for years, a long-term client, or even a friend. With a stranger, there's an immediate barrier of uncertainty and perhaps even suspicion. You don't know their quirks, their communication style, their true priorities, or their level of trustworthiness. Every statement might be scrutinized for hidden agendas. Miscommunications are more likely to escalate because there's no goodwill reservoir to draw upon. This is why one of the best proactive ways to prevent people problems, the misunderstandings, misinterpretations, and emotional flare-ups that can derail a negotiation, is by building a relationship with the other side before the negotiation starts and nurturing it throughout. This doesn't mean becoming best friends or compromising your integrity. It means investing time and effort in connecting on a human level. How can you actively build this crucial rapport? Arrive early to chat. Don't just show up precisely when the meeting starts and jump straight into business. Aim to arrive a few minutes early. Use this time to engage in light, informal conversation. Ask about their weekend, a recent news event, their city, or even a shared interest you might have discovered. This small talk might seem trivial, but it serves a vital purpose. It humanizes both of you. It allows you to see each other not just as negotiating counterparts, but as individuals with lives beyond the immediate transaction. Stay a bit afterward. Similarly, when the formal discussion concludes, don't rush out the door. Linger for a few minutes. Offer to grab a coffee or water. This creates an opportunity for further informal interaction, consolidating the rapport built during the pre-meeting chat. Get to know their likes and dislikes. Pay attention during these informal interactions. What are their hobbies? Do they talk about their family? What are their professional aspirations? Understanding these personal details allows you to connect on a deeper level and demonstrate genuine interest. Remember something they mentioned previously and bring it up later. How was that trip you were planning? Or did your team win the game? These small gestures show you were listening and care beyond the immediate negotiation. Listen actively, even in casual conversation. Building a relationship isn't just about talking. It's profoundly about listening. Show genuine curiosity in what they say, even in non-business contexts. Ask open-ended questions that encourage them to share more about themselves. Find common ground. Look for shared experiences, interests, or even challenges. Discovering common ground can create a sense of camaraderie and reduce the us versus them mentality. These informal interactions might seem like mere pleasantries, but their impact on the negotiation process is profound. They create a foundation of trust and openness. When trust is present, parties are more willing to share information, including their true interests, which, as we've discussed, is paramount to finding mutual gains. They are also more likely to believe what you say and less likely to resort to deceptive tactics. Misunderstandings are more easily clarified, and potential impasses can be navigated with greater flexibility. A positive relationship also fosters a collaborative mindset, where both parties are genuinely invested in finding a solution that works for everyone, rather than focusing solely on their own slice of the pie. The data supports this unequivocally. Multiple studies have consistently demonstrated that simply getting to know the other side, even through brief, informal interactions, significantly increases the success rate of negotiations, often by as much as 25 to 30%. This is not because relationships automatically lead to concessions, but because they foster an environment where open communication, creative problem-solving, and principled bargaining can flourish. When you invest in building rapport, you're not just being friendly, you're making a strategic investment that will yield dividends in the form of smoother, more effective, and more satisfying negotiation outcomes, setting the stage for productive future collaborations. The true goal: mutual satisfaction. We began this journey by dismantling the common misconception that negotiation is a contest, a battle to be won or lost. Let's conclude with a powerful story that beautifully encapsulates the true spirit and ultimate goal of principled negotiation. The year was 1964. The setting was Hyde Park, London. An American father and his 12-year-old son were enjoying a leisurely afternoon, engaged in a playful game of frisbee. At that time, frisbees were a relatively novel sight in England, and their graceful flight captivated passers-by. A small crowd gradually gathered, drawn by the unusual spectacle of the flying disc. After a while, a gentleman from the assembled onlookers approached the father, a curious smile on his face. "Sorry to bother you," he began. "I've been watching you for 15 minutes now, and it looks like you're having a grand time. But I have to ask, who's winning?" The father paused, the frisbee still in his hand, and chuckled. "Winning," he replied. "You know, asking who's winning in a game of frisbee is like asking who's winning in a marriage." This simple anecdote profoundly illustrates the core philosophy of principled negotiation. If in any collaborative endeavor, be it a marriage, a business partnership, a team project, or a negotiation, your primary focus is on winning, on keeping score, on ensuring you get more than the other side, then you have fundamentally missed the point. You have misunderstood the very purpose of coming together. The real goal in such interactions, and especially in negotiation, is not to dominate, not to defeat, and certainly not to exploit. The real goal is mutual satisfaction. Mutual satisfaction means finding a solution that genuinely addresses the legitimate interests of both sides. It means crafting an agreement where both parties feel their fundamental needs have been understood and met to a significant degree. It's about creating value, not just claiming a larger share of a fixed pie. When you focus on mutual satisfaction, you shift from a scarcity mindset, "There's only so much and I need to get my share," to an abundance mindset. How can we work together to create more for everyone? Consider the alternative, a negotiation, where one party wins by forcing the other into an unfavorable agreement. What is the likely outcome? The loser will leave feeling resentful, exploited, and unwilling to engage in future interactions. The agreement itself might be fragile, prone to being broken or undermined at the first opportunity. The relationship, if one existed, will be damaged or destroyed, sacrificing long-term goodwill for a short-term lopsided victory. This is a Pyrrhic victory, costing more in the long run than it gains. Conversely, when both sides strive for mutual satisfaction, the benefits are far-reaching. Durability of agreement. Agreements born out of mutual satisfaction are inherently more stable and robust. Because both parties feel their interests have been addressed, they are more committed to upholding the terms and making the agreement work. Strengthened relationships. Achieving a mutually beneficial outcome fosters trust, builds goodwill, and strengthens the relationship between the parties. This is invaluable for future collaborations, problem-solving, and repeat business. Increased efficiency. When parties are genuinely focused on mutual gain, they are more willing to share information, explore creative options, and find efficiencies. That might not have been apparent in a competitive environment. Reputational benefits. Being known as a fair, collaborative, and effective negotiator who seeks mutual satisfaction enhances your reputation and makes others more willing to engage with you in the future. The Harvard model of negotiation teaches us that true success isn't measured by how much you took from the other side, but by how effectively you helped create a solution that works for everyone involved. It's about recognizing that in complex human interactions, our fates are often intertwined. By working together, by understanding each other's interests, by exploring creative options, and by adhering to fair standards, we move beyond the simplistic notion of winning and embrace the far more rewarding objective of finding common ground and achieving shared success. This profound shift in perspective transforms negotiation from a confrontational battle into a powerful tool for collaborative problem-solving and value creation, ensuring that both sides can leave the table feeling not just content, but truly satisfied. We have journeyed through the powerful principles laid out by the Harvard Negotiation Project, fundamentally reshaping our understanding of what it means to truly negotiate. We've moved beyond the simplistic, often destructive paradigm of winning and losing, and embraced a more profound, more effective approach. We started by learning that the most crucial initial step is to focus on interests, not positions. By asking why and empathizing with the underlying needs, desires, and concerns of the other party, we unlock the door to creative solutions that rigid demands could never yield. This fundamental shift allows us to move from a clash of stated positions to a collaborative exploration of shared or compatible interests. Next, we discovered the immense power of using fair standards or objective criteria. When faced with opposing interests, we learned to depersonalize the conflict by appealing to external benchmarks such as market rates, legal precedents, or expert opinions. This transforms a contentious haggle over arbitrary demands into a principled discussion about what is truly fair and justifiable, shifting the focus from subjective willpower to objective reasonableness. Our exploration then led us to the imperative of inventing options for mutual gain. We realized that the negotiation pie is rarely fixed. It can often be expanded through creativity and brainstorming. By separating the act of generating ideas from the act of judging them, and by actively seeking out and leveraging differences, we can uncover innovative solutions that satisfy more, if not all, of each party's interests, moving beyond mere compromise to true value creation. Perhaps most critically, we delved into the human element, understanding the vital need to separate the people from the problem. Recognizing that negotiators are emotional beings with egos, perceptions, and communication nuances, we committed to being soft on the individual while remaining firm on the issues. This involves active listening, showing empathy, appreciating their efforts, and proactively building rapport, ensuring that relationships are preserved and even strengthened throughout the negotiation process. We also equipped ourselves with strategies for navigating the inevitable challenges, handling dirty tactics by calmly calling them out, managing power imbalances by diligently developing our best alternative to a negotiated agreement, BATNA, and gracefully deflecting personal attacks through the art of negotiation jiu-jitsu, redirecting negative energy towards constructive problem-solving. Finally, we reaffirmed that the true goal of negotiation is mutual satisfaction. It is not about one side winning at the expense of the other, but about creating agreements that genuinely address the legitimate interests of both parties. This leads to more durable outcomes, stronger relationships, and a foundation for future collaborations. By integrating these powerful principles, focusing on interests, using objective criteria, inventing options for mutual gain, and separating the people from the problem, you gain not just a set of techniques, but a transformative mindset. You will approach disagreements not as battles to be won, but as shared problems to be solved. You will learn to listen with a new ear, speak with greater clarity, and create solutions that benefit everyone involved. This is the essence of principled negotiation, a skill that empowers you in every aspect of your life, enabling you to navigate complex interactions with confidence, integrity, and remarkable effectiveness. It's time to stop asking, "Who's winning?" and start asking, "How can we both thrive